Coach Jack, thanks so much for the podcast again.
Thanks for having us, Steve.
Of course. So listen, we're doing this. We got a few games under your belt this season right now. Let's talk about it. How you feel this has been going so far for you?
Pretty good. We started with 5 out-of-league games. Played a very aggressive schedule, 3 on the road against pretty good teams. Ward, Cheshire, Greenwich, St. Joe's, and we started the league play on Friday, which was a big game against New Canaan. New Canaan they were 5-1. It was they're an up-and-coming team. They have a lot of college commits, and it was we really stepped up and played a great game there. So. We're a team that's evolving. We got some young kids mixed in with some older kids, so we're hoping that we're not even close to the ceiling I think that we can get to.
Yeah, it was a good game. I thought getting in there, you got out from the games. I think I've been to the 3 home games. I think the difference has been really you got out to an early start against New Canaan.
Yeah.
You got those 3 rounds on the board, and it was all uphill from there.
I think if you watched the last 3 innings of the St. Joe's game, you could see how we were going to play against New Canaan. The bats started coming alive, and we were like a foot and a half from a grand slam walk-off there. And, our bats were kind of quiet the first 4 innings against St. Joe's. Like you said, we were behind, but then they started coming alive, and, St. Joe's kind of held on there at the end. But, we were playing, we were really working toward, this league opener against New Canaan.
Let me ask you a question. I always wonder about this. What is the one thing people, I guess, misinterpret most about coaching a high school baseball team?
Probably that, it's very important early in the year with scrimmages and out-of-conference games to throw out as many combinations as you can get because it's such a short season. It's not like football where you have a 30-day preseason and there's basically like 3 or 4 practice days and you have your first scrimmage. So you really have to get to know your team and your guys, especially when you don't have a lot of returners like our pitching staff. Bruce threw maybe 11 or 12 innings last year and we had to find a number 2 and number 3. So we had Lucas Snow and Nate Pauly and Charlie Fitch, who was injured last year, and they've all stepped up, and we've been able to fill in, waiting for some other guys who are injured right now. So I think it's more of how you're playing at the end. Where football, obviously you need to nail down every win. You need to be 8-2 or 9. You know what I mean? You can't. Baseball is you can kind of, run some combinations out there. If you take a loss, fine. As long as you learn from it, it's not a bad thing. Because once you get in those single elimination tournaments, that's what everything you're doing now is to be ready for that. You can't have one bad inning. You can't have, you could be the best team in Connecticut. You lose in that first round against an ace. Happens all the time.
It's so interesting because it's like the way they do high schools, at least here in Connecticut, it's like it's so against baseball. It's always a series.
Yeah.
You don't get to play a series. Yeah. It's every game is game 7.
It's not really a single elimination game, but it's a short season and graduation starts and they have to sneak it in there. And the weather in March and April is just really unpredictable. And it's 80 degrees the other day. Today we'll be playing. It'll be 45. So it's.
It's like I was thinking, even like from a personal level, like, I had their conditioning on last week and the heater was on last night. Yeah. Right? It's just crazy, right? As you go through it. What has this team surprised you the most so far?
Probably the team chemistry. Sometimes it takes halfway through or, especially with some younger kids in there. Everybody's just getting along well. The older kids are really bringing the younger kids up. And when people's numbers are called, they're getting the job done. And, they know that I will call your number when you least expect it. I keep talking about Reese Jamali in the 10th inning against Ward. He sat there for 10 innings, but I told everybody, be ready. And when his number was called, he took the first pitch, base hit up the middle, and we won the game. That's what it's all about. So be ready when your number's called and have great team chemistry. And I'm seeing that very early. I'm really happy about that.
And that, personal opinion, has to do a lot with the captains.
Oh, unbelievable. Yeah. We got a kid like Mason Tobias, who's a pitcher only, who's now playing right field. But his leadership, just from going through the whole basketball thing and understanding that he needs to bring people along, is unbelievable. All our captains, Mark Kelly, Vince Vega, Connor Brill, they're all, doing a great job. Jules, Cicero. These are guys that understand that it's a game of failure. So when somebody's down or, they strike out, give them a little pat on the, get them next time. It's a tough game, man. That's all I can tell you.
It's like even watching it, it's brutal, right? Because you're at bat by yourself, right? If you're pitching, it's you on the mound against the guy. It's like, I think from all the sports that I follow is the one you're singly exposed the most about that. So the mental aspect of the game is incredible.
It's tough. I mean, if you make an out, you go to the outfield, you might have to wait 45 minutes to atone for it. In other sports, you screw up, you're right back in it, you pick the ball up, you do something to help your team. Tennis, you double fault and you
start right away.
And you throw an ace, you know what I mean? You can fix it quick. It really takes a special kid to keep working on his tools and being patient and, trusting the process.
I mean, this team, we'll talk specifically about some players here. Now, we talked after New Canaan, and you talked about Jules making that play, which I think we put a highlight out.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been incredible from the field and also from the batter's box. He's been incredible.
Yeah, Jules has been great. He's a 3-year starter for us. He's got some real, upside tools as far as, athletic ability, speed, jumping ability, as we saw in there. Swings the bat well. He's just, he's a fun kid to coach. And, for him to be our leadoff hitter and you're starting the game with that kid in the box, the other team's like, oh, here we go. Let's keep him off the bases. And he stole a base the other day against, a catcher who's a Big Ten commit. So
it's been great. I mean, and I also think you mentioned too about Lucas Noto. He came in that game and pitched so well.
Pitched great.
And you're talking about, finding things. That's probably an example of finding someone we didn't think, right?
Huge. I mean, Lucas came in, four innings, scoreless. I mean, and he's been great. He's, pitching a couple games. He'll pitch this week. Yeah, you can only find that stuff out by putting the kids out there. And, if you're worried about, oh, no, we might lose if we don't put out, no. Kids need opportunities. So, we get the data. We can see, when it really matters, is this, are these guys going to help us or, do they need more coaching, whatever it is.
Is it hard because, and I think I don't know if I've asked you this before, it's like when they get to high school, they're pretty much a formed baseball player.
Yeah.
How is it coaching them versus, when you're trying to teach the fundamentals versus teaching guys who kind of, quote unquote, already have somewhat the fundamentals? How different is that? Well,
you have to make sure that they're going to fit into the team concept and the way, we're doing things. You're right. To change the way a kid swings, the way he throws, that's very hard to do. We really preach small adjustments. Connor Brillwin, another one of our captains who's, been great. He's in a little bit of a slump. And, you can tell him, move up in the box a little bit or move back in the box or let the ball travel a little bit. You're not going to change somebody's swing. But little adjustments, there's a lot of in-game adjustments that have to happen are big for these kids. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to make them, more successful during the game.
Yeah, and that's like you said, and maybe that's the coaching that goes on at high school versus let's play some kid, let's see how you throw it. It's another animal.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of little things. Baseball is like it's like a chess match, and there's all the individual stuff because it's like an individual sport, right? But it's a team sport. In the end, everybody's got to be doing their job. So there's a lot going on. I have some great assistants. I got 4 real good assistants that are older guys that played, that won championships. They're there because they love baseball. They understand this is the kid business, not the us business. We had our time. So we want the kids to have the best experience, have the best guys around where they can learn and they can flourish. And, that's important.
How did you get started in coaching?
It's funny. I got somebody, I was doing an interview the other day and they asked me that. And when I got out of college, the athletic director at Fairfield High called me because I played at Andrew Ward and said, Coach Benjamino wants you to coach, maybe you coach freshman baseball and you can also coach football. And that's how I started over there. And right out of college. So 1988, 89, I was coaching I was the head freshman baseball coach at Fairfield High and head freshman football coach.
So you coach football as well?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I feel, and you might be, I feel like a baseball manager affects the game a lot more on a play-to-play, but other than any sport. Because I coach at rec level, but I still felt like I was impacting the game a lot in baseball.
You could tell in the first inning, like I was a little, I was on those umps a little bit to try to get to shape things a little bit our way as far as where they were calling strikes, and there were some close plays at first that went against us. I just wanted to make my presence felt like this is a big game, and we all have to be on our. Because I felt there were a couple calls in the game before that went against us that, I'm not going to say that's why we lost, because that's never why you lose, but just want to make sure we're the home team. We're getting, this game's going to be called right because, it's tough. Now, it's tough for the umpires too, though, by the way. It's 100%. A tough game.
Now, I would say this. It is, for me at least, it's a pleasure to enjoy. You give the umpires a hard time in there. I love it, every minute of it. I will say this, though. I remember you making a comment where, I think it was a pitch, I think when Bruce was pitching.
Yeah.
It was really close. You said, come on, this is high school baseball. We got to call it to the ability of players. And that was like a valid comment because I thought he changed his calls a little bit after that. It was a more lenient strike zone. But it's valid. It's a big part of managing.
I think my point is when a kid puts the ball there right on the corner on a 3, let's not reward the hitter for taking that pitch. This is high school baseball. I mean, I watching it again on the tape. I thought it was a strike. Whether it wasn't, it was just a great pitch. And let's reward a great pitch. I mean, you want to move the game along and punch guys out, at first base, everywhere else. Let's do that on the mound too. Nobody wants to see walks and errors. And, But make the kids swing the bat. I want my kids to swing the bat. I don't want my kids taking that pitch. That's why I said that.
Now it's an interesting.
That goes both ways.
Right, because what you said right there is we might think of, well, you kind of, you just kind of for a call. No, you're kind of rewarding the person who's making the play.
Yeah.
Not the one who's sitting there watching the play.
Exactly.
And then
my kids on a 3-2 count, they know if it's close, you got to swing. Let's not put it in the umpire's hand. Foul it off, do whatever. But I thought Bruce put that ball right there, and it was. I don't think I was the only one that.
Listen, I'm behind the plate getting footage. It was pretty good. It was a pretty good. That's why I'm bringing it up.
The guy had a great zone. The rest of it, was fine. But early in the game, I always want to make sure that because these pitchers are on pitch counts and stuff. So you walk a guy there after that. That's adding like 7 or 8 pitches to the pitch count, and now we have to pull him in the 6th because So it's hard to coach with the pitch count. That's all I can say. It's a little bit of a
So here's what's so great for me, like following the high school baseball so much that. Listen, everybody loves Game 7 because, especially in baseball, because every pitch matters so much. And with following guys, like every game's a Game 7.
Yeah.
There's no series. You're not playing them again until we played Ward. They ain't gonna play them until later in the season. So it's everything just matters so much.
Yeah.
And not that every sports don't, but I understand what your point is. It's absolutely a valid point.
There's a cause and effect for not calling that a strike. Kid goes to first base. Now he's throwing 7 more pitches. There's a pitch count that a kid has to come out. It just changes everything.
Listen, the standard is very high for your program. We talked about how we have such a and the other day I think I put a picture because you walk into the diamond, you see like 3 Gatorade players of the year. You see so much history there. But year over year, what do you consider successful years for you?
When I first took over, we had 1 dugout. We had no bleachers. It was a total redo as far as the program. And we wanted to get the facilities right so we can have a right practice. Then we wanted to be competitive in the conference. We were not competitive in the conference. Our kids were, it was Trumbull, Stanford, and Norwalk were just running the league, and everybody else was kind of bowed down to them. So we had to get up to there, and we were able to do that and started winning the FCIAC. Then we wanted to get to the state level. So it's been a progression. The Gatorade Players of the Year, those are great. Those are program awards. If your team goes 9-11, I don't care how good the kid's season is, he's not getting it. So everybody, the rising tide lifts all boats. You get those stuff when you win, and you're able to keep kids here. I mean, all 3 of those kids could have played at other schools, could have went to private schools, could have went down south, could have went out west, could have played anywhere. And we created the conditions here where they were going to stay and get done what they needed done here. Ben was drafted by the Dodgers. He, got a full scholarship to North Carolina right out of Staples. Chad, in the middle of practice, the Yankees called and drafted him, which was really cool. I'm like, what's your phone doing out? He said, the Yankees said they were going to, so they called him.
It's incredible. And great story. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and Hero drafted right out of Staples High School, and made a ton of money and 3rd round, and and they're also paying for his college. There's also a separate account for that, so he's taken care of. So you can get, if you create a program where kids will stay and kids get excited and they can get everything done. There's no reason for them to go to other schools or transfer, and so it's becoming a little bit of the trendy thing in sports right now, and we're going the other way with it. We got Kai to come back from a private school, was living in Westport, and we got Hero to come back. Because everything they needed was here, and that's important to us to stay on top of that. Yeah,
listen, I was going to bring it up. I'm glad you did, because it's like since I started doing PrepZone, I've when people ask me this and that, and I said I felt like when college got to that level where the NIL and all that was going on, I felt like high school wasn't too far behind, which is not a good thing. Let's put it that way. I mean, at least in my view, still, it's like because And you're seeing it now, not only happening here in our school, but other schools where there's a transfer portal now. There's, isn't that, I mean, to me, it's just like, but you have, you like you mentioned, Hero came back, Kai came back, coming back. So is there something that you think you're doing differently that is kind of keeping these kids here?
Well, what I did different with them is they were living in Westport, and I reached out and, kind of, explained to them what we have to offer. And I think, that starts with the youth. You have to be at all these youth camps. You have to get as many S-hats as you can out in the town. And you really got to pump it. I mean, we had a 2:00 game against New Canaan Friday. You saw the crowd, 2:00 game. I was like, this is like a playoff crowd.
On a vacation week.
It was unbelievable. So, you got to make it important. You got to, you just have to stay on top of it. That's all I can say. There are... one advantage to baseball is, especially if you're a pitcher, it's not advantageous to reclass and be older. The clock is going. You have to get everything done by the time you're 24. Or you're not once you're 25, 26 as a pitcher, you're done. So, for Hero and Kai, that kind of helped them. But, the fact that there was a first-round draft pick out of East Catholic a couple years ago, Ben Kasparius with the Dodgers.
It's all good. Don't worry. We understand recording. Go ahead.
So all that stuff is helps keep kids here, and for baseball specifically.
Do you? And this is a personal opinion, not about anything. Like, do you think that this portal thing is a good thing or a bad thing for an athlete? For student athlete, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Are you talking about for college or for high school or just?
I'm thinking. Well, because we think high school, right?
Yeah.
I always think high school. Like, I don't. It's like, and I'm obviously biased because I'm following high school sports. I'm here at Staples. I know everything it offers.
Yeah.
We've been through high school. We know it's the best time of our lives, right? And you can't really tell a kid when they're in high school to say, hey, this is the best time of your life. Yeah. Play with your friends. Stay here. Yeah. You're going to have all this time. But now it's like, and listen, I'm not going to mention names, but like I've talked to parents after the decision, and it seems like it's a parent-driven thing, and I'm not big on parents, because they're doing the best for their kids, and I do the same thing, right? You can't do that, but the kid also enjoys it because you see on social media and all that becomes. But I don't know if it's and maybe I'm looking from a lens of like me not covering the athletes. It's like I don't know if it's a good thing for the student athlete to just uproot their life because of something that it's not a certainty.
Yeah, listen, it's definitely a family decision. It's when you have guys like Rick Pitino saying, I'm just not going to recruit high school kids, it makes kids say, okay, then I got to kind of prolong things a little longer. I've got to reclass. I've got to do this. I got to do that. I'll probably end up going to 2 or 3 different colleges because all these guys at St. John's and UConn are like coming from other schools. Yeah. So it is a different world, you just got to adapt and see how far this is going to go.
Yeah. Well, it's a good side step there. I appreciate that. It's like you really can't, like I said, I'm biased because I feel like I said, and I've talked to kids, offline. I'm like, hey, understand that, like, things are going to happen. We've done people, you look at what Clacko did, right? I mean, he stayed here. He got himself. He did great. I mean,
listen, if you talk to Hero and Kai, they'll tell you there's nothing like high school, the local rivalries, Fairfield, Staples, Norwalk has 2 great high schools right next door. You don't get that in college or, private schools. Every game, you're going to Greenwich. So it's a special thing. And, they really enjoy their time here.
Yeah, no, I had Clark on in the pregame, and I said, any regrets? He goes, none whatsoever.
Yeah. Right?
I mean, and I'm sure if I asked, Hero or Kai or Ben, they'd say the exact same thing because how great it was, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just, and it's so much fun now. We talked about successful. So what? And you this is a word used a lot. You talk about the ceiling, right? Yeah. So the ball club this year. What is the ceiling for these guys? What do you see them doing this year?
Well, I mean, I think you saw the way we could play the other day. I mean, to beat that team 7-0, they had 5 or 6 college commits, and it was a dominating performance. Now that doesn't mean you're going to perform like that every time. We have to. When Bruce is on the mound, we have to play a certain way. We have Cole Landgraf, who's going to be back in 2 weeks, a real good player. Outfielder, left-handed hitter, kid who can throw some innings. We have Mason, who actually threw a bullpen the other day, who knows, like, hey, at the end of the year, it might be, something, there might be a little magic there at the end. So, my whole thing is we have to, we're treading water a little bit right now. We've got to survive April a little bit, take our wins, and then, end up on a high point. Any coach, any coach you talk to in here, nobody wants to go 7-0 and then end up
the playoffs.
Yeah. You want to be on that upward thing. That's why I always talk about the ceiling. This team's got a lot of pieces. There's a couple freshmen in the lineup. So, but to me now they're not freshmen anymore. We've played 5 games. It's late in the year. It's April. Baseball. Spring sports is a little different with freshmen because they've been in the building 9 months. You're not going to start in the building in August and be starter in a sport as a 9th grader. But some of these other sports you can do it, and these kids are working hard now, and some are ready to. When they're ready to play, and people in my program know it. You're getting on the field. I don't need a kid, hitting 900 playing JV. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, it's like I think during the basketball championship, I heard one of the comments, and the guy said, "Listen, if you're playing this game here, you're already a sophomore because you've already played a whole year. It's not a freshman anymore. You've played the amount of innings. Yeah. I mean, you look at what Nola's been a great addition to your center infield there. He's doing good.
Yeah, his defense is really coming along. He's got a great bat.
A big guy.
Chase Landgraf, 3 hits the other day, if not out of the outfield. So these kids are ready to roll.
Yeah, and that's why it's interesting, right? Because every year over year, you kind of see these things pop up where there's players that didn't think, and that kind of boosts up the program. Yeah. But I feel like in high school, it's funny because you always look for someone to replace who you got.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it gets back to where those signs. You talk about that Gatorade sign, right? Yeah, it has a big impact on 7th and 8th graders. And they come watch a game, they're like, maybe I could be the next one. Yeah. And we point to that all the time. It's like, those are all team awards. Gatorade Player of the Year, All State, All FCAC, whatever it is. Whatever your goal is, that can be done here, and that's why we show that sign. That's not for individuals. That's for the school. That's a great school thing.
Well, it is. I mean, you look when Caleb did it for football, right? Yeah. I mean, how much celebrated it was. I mean, Caleb did a tremendous thing, and then we've had so much success with lacrosse team and all that. Yeah. So what? Obviously, you got Ward sitting out there, you got all these teams, but what is going to be, aside from staying healthy, the key for this team to kind of make a big, get to Cubetta, because I know it's a big deal for every year to play at least that semifinal and get deep in the States. Yeah,
there's no question we want to lock down the FCAC, an FCAC playoff game. But I think it's going to be the lineup, getting the lineup right, swinging the bats like we did the other day, like we did a little bit in the second half of that St. Joe's game. You get a good kid on the mound and the innings can go quick and you're down 2 or 3-0 and the bats are silent. Those are the tough games. And there's some big time. Somebody said there were 12 Division I pitchers in the FCAC this year. So you're going to see some arms. So we really have to, keep working on, swinging the bats and moving runners over and stealing some bases and doing stuff like that.
Yeah. I know at bats, if one thing I know that you get on the guys is like, seeing a few pitches, being patient in the box. I know that's something you've been preaching. Is that something
huge? It's a situational hitting. Like the other day, Jules led off with a double, right? Yeah. Nolan's up. He's in the 2-hole. His job there is to pull the ball. Pulls it to first base. Jules is on third. That kind of stuff. Every at bat's got to be as productive as possible for us to win. So
I do specifically remember that because that's right, because he does a double, then he pulls over, and I saw that everyone was so happy about that.
That's why
play.
You don't bunt there because he's a left-handed hitter. You just have pull the ball. He might pull it through the hole. He might hit it in the gap, but he knew the assignment and he got it done. So it was great.
Those are little things that if you're not a coach, you don't know. You're just like, well, why is everyone so excited about that? Well, because he did what he was supposed to do with that exact thing, right? Share with us a funny story this season that you talked about chemistry. What have you seen specifically that talks to you about how together these guys are?
Well, we won the other day, and the kids were talking, we're going to Rico's if we win. So like in the 5th inning, I kept hearing about hot oil pizza, this and that. And so the whole team went over to Rico's after the game, and it was pretty good. We had a good team bonding session there. But I could just tell by the way kids like Connor and Mason are interacting with the younger kids and the kids who don't start, and the team chemistry is good. And that's half the battle in high school sports.
Is it tough putting sometimes these freshmen in spots like in the varsity with guys who've been together for a long time, unless you have that kind of leadership? Yeah, no, you know what? I think they kind of like it. They kind of like having the freshmen around. They use them, they have nicknames and all that, and they know they belong there. This is not like, you know what I mean? Somebody's on the team because they know somebody. These are real good players, so that they know we need them to win, so they're bringing them in. It's funny you say that because listen, there's been so many great things I love with doing PrepZone. One of them is like being around teams, and when you take your parent cap off, like the kids who are playing are the ones that really should be playing. And my point is, the guys inside the locker room, inside the dugout, know.
Yeah, they know. And but they also know that a coach may call me at any time. I better be ready and get, swing the bat. So things can turn. Kids can go in a slump, and somebody else gets a chance, and they get 3 hits, and they're in the lineup. But like when Cole comes back, the outfield's going to be crowded. So we're going to have some decisions to make there.
And listen, there's nothing better than 1 into 5 for a position, right? I feel like it's a luxury to have that kind of problem, because sometimes you look at some, I've heard, you going back to lacrosse, like there's a team this year who couldn't even fill the team, right? So it's like you see this happens, like if you don't have stable program, talent coming through, and doing that work that you said, doing with the younger ages, you don't get that.
No, you don't. And the other thing is, a lot of times the parents don't see what we see. They're like, "What? We're seeing these kids every day in practice. That's what we're making their decisions on, not the game." You don't get better at golf shooting 18 holes. You get better on the range, and that's what we're seeing the kids on the range. So we're seeing the skill set. We're seeing what they can and can't do. And, we got a lot of eyes on them. So, that's one thing everybody has to understand is we're not, that's nilly-willies, hey, some kid hit 600 for Babe Ruth last year, so we're going to start him. We're putting the kids through the paces. We have very aggressive practices, and, that's how we make our decisions. So.
Talk a little bit about the senior class. I know, Jules and Mason, these guys have been very special to you. What is this year emotionally be like for you?
It's going to be tough. These seniors the leadership is really, I think of Connor Brill, it's like my right-hand man. Coach, should I get the word out? What time's the bus? All that kind of stuff. Jules he just leads by example. He's just out there. Mason Mason's very smart, very level-headed out there. He knows, when things are getting too hot, or when to cool things down. Vince has been a great leadership and a great example for us. He's got a great story. So, Mark Kelly, he lives in the weight room. He's just a rock at third base. So all those guys are great leaders, and the other seniors too. So, we're getting great leadership from the whole class. Jack Jacobs was a great big piece of that basketball team. He covers a lot of ground in center field. He's a two-sport kid, so we got to get his back going a little bit, but it's going to happen. And you just see him out there. He's just a big, strong presence for us. So.
Like he punched that ball to get that run across, to get was it Logan across, right?
Yeah.
I guess so. He did it. It's like doesn't matter how you do it as long as you get the job done, right?
He's a winning player, no question about it.
Yeah, but it's been fun. I think it's a very fun squad. It looks like I said. I think you confirm what I said. It looks like they're having fun out there and having a good, and it's a good chemistry. So if we talk at the end of the year, for this club, what's a successful year in your mind?
Just to get everybody, as close as we can to their potential. That to me, I think we're going to be an FCAC and we're going to be a state playoff team, and then see if we can catch a little magic in one of those 2 tournaments. That's the key. The team's still evolving. It's still, a work in progress. We have a great schedule. We got St. Joe's coming to us, Ward's coming. So there's going to be some great games down the line. When the weather gets nice, it's going to be fun. So we're excited about it.
Yeah. I was looking at the schedule here. You got Ward coming up at home, like I said, St. Joe's, and later on, there's going to be great. West Hill's got a pretty good team too.
Yeah. They got everybody's pretty good this year.
We talked about everybody's got
Wilton, Norwalk Wednesday is going to be a great game. So,
like I said, everybody's got a baseball team. We see it all the time.
Stanford's 5-1 with Friday. That'll be a good one.
That would be that'll be a fun game to be.
Yeah.
It's like I said, the weather will get nice. It was great. Against Darien. Not New Canaan. The weather was great.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. Like I said, everybody gets out. It's a great day for baseball.
It's great. We'll get the pizza truck and the ice cream truck out there. We'll have some fun.
That's right. Hey, we'll go to Rico's next time with the guys. I did see them talking about it a lot. Get us to Rico's, I think when somebody came up, trying to, let's get the 10 runs here and get out and go eat some pizza, I was like, yeah, that's a good way to put it. I love that. Coach, thanks so much for a few minutes. We appreciate it very much. And we'll see you Friday at the game, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
You got it. Thanks, Steve. We'll see you out at the field.